Welcome everyone to this book launch. Frater Acher is on the line. Hello, Frater Acher.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Very, very delighted to have you. I'm so honored that you would choose the Foolish Fish YouTube channel to launch your new book, Frater Acher, which is called Ingenium. It's a follow-up to your recently very successful Holy Heretics, which everyone's been waiting for. And this one kind of came out of nowhere. I've just spent the past couple of weeks digging into it, and it's extremely exciting. I don't believe it's quite yet available to buy. Am I right on this?
That's exactly right. We're getting it ready for launch. We have our hands on the actual Deluxe edition. We have around, I think it's going to be 72 Deluxe books. And I'll be shipping these to Miskatonic and Courtyard Books in the UK and in the US respectively. So that's where people will be able to buy them. And then we're doing a normal hardcover, a paperback, and an ebook through Ingenium publishing. So that will be available via all online retailers. You know, many people might buy it from Amazon, and the reality of that is when you upload the PDF so that Ingenium can begin to print it, you always have a little bit of fluctuation of availability at the beginning, and then Amazon does its place with the price until they have enough of it in stock. So hopefully within the next 10 days, people will actually see it and find it on Amazon and other online retailers. And then depending on availability, the price might fluctuate a little bit. We are producing the book, both softcover and the hardcover version, in the highest end standards that Ingenium offers. People who have bought the Rosicrucian Magic book, it will be the same kind of quality of hardcover book, but in this case we'll also offer a softcover. So that's the publishing way. People can find more information on it on tadehen.com and then /Ingenium, but they won't be able to buy it there. To buy it, you'll need to go to the online retailer of your choice. Exactly, that's the page where we've shared details of the books and some
many
photos
of the
of
pictures that I've just been showing are here as well. That's really nice. And then there's a link to the first few pages of the book that people can actually click on and check out for themselves. That's the
yeah, that's coming soon. That's still the whole. That's another book. Yes, you're right.
For the buy link.
Exactly. The one of the table of contents. I always find this super helpful when publishers offer me to just see the first few pages of a book that I'm interested to buy. So we're doing the same here. These are the first few pages of the book as the wonderful Joseph Uccello designed it. You can see the content section here, which I think he did a fabulous job in laying it out. And you also have my short preface, my introduction to download here as well. So anybody interested can get more information right there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, as you were saying, Joseph Uccello is involved in creating the look of this book. Is that right? A huge fan of Joseph's.
I can give a little bit of background maybe to the origin of that book and how it came about, if that's okay.
Oh, that'd be great. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I wrote this really in 2020, 2021, after I had finished Holy Heretics. And it really came out of nowhere for me. Writing Holy Heretics was quite exhausting and quite hard work. It had taken me more than a year to do that. Just the active writing, the actual practice, of course, was much longer. And I was really ready to take a little break after that. And then this book hit me like out of nowhere. And as I've described on other podcasts before, I write Contacted, I write with the spirits. And I had this very extreme, clearly a call to write this book. And this book really is about what it means to be human from a magical point of view. And the journey that we're on in Holy Heretics is really a journey through the lens of Christian mysticism and then through Paracelsian magic and ultimately the Olympic spirits in order to bring out your actual humanness. And, I've explained before, that's quite the complex concept with Paracelsus. But if you actually were to practice the stuff that I'm offering in Holy Heretics, by the end of it, you've pulled yourself into a space, into a realm where your humanness begins. Ingenium continues exactly there. And Ingenium is a book about, okay, well, now you have unlocked capabilities that allow you to really stand in the storm that's called creation like a human. What are we going to do with this? How do we now practice? So when I look back onto the book, and I've just received the deluxe edition yesterday and kind of leafed through it, I actually would say this, from the books that I've written so far, that actually might be, in my personal view, it might be the most important book. And the reason why I say that is that Holy Heretics, the book that I wrote on Tritemius, and even Holy Diamond, they're very historic. They always take historic content and then hopefully help people find a modern access to it and a modern way of practicing it. This book is entirely about magic the way I practice it. So it is super personal. It is quite radical. I gave it to a few trusted people before it went into print, and one of them came back and said it's actually pretty punk rock. I took that as a huge compliment. Said that's good. That's how it was meant to turn out. So it's a make no prisoner kind of book. We originally had slated it to come out with a Scarlet imprint because it would have really led on quite nicely from Holy Heretics, even though it's not part of this Holy Diamond cycle. I think it's much more radical in its language and much more personal. And then just because of scheduling conflicts and the other books that Scarlet imprint want to do and should do to uphold a really diverse portfolio of books, we know we could do it, but it will be very much delayed, probably into 2024. And so I took it on and said, no, let me do as much of it as I can myself, through friends, etc. And that's where Joseph Uccello came in and did this absolute marvelous job in layouting the whole thing, adding his artwork to it. He really treats books like living beings. Yes. You don't distinguish between where the art ends and the text begins. It all really is one body in the end. And I'm just blown away with what he's done with that book. Frater Acher, Ralph Techmeyer, did the copy editing, and in the process of copy editing, shared a lot of amazing notes and personal viewpoints on some of the content, which helped me again to finalize some of the chapters. So at the end of the day, it has come out really, really lovely. I'm very, very happy with how the book is coming together.
Yeah, looking at it from an outsider's perspective, it is. There's an energy to it. I mean, I've only been working with the PDF, and it's just gorgeous. It's Joseph Uccello's work on it, as you were saying, is just delightful. I mean, he's a master at what he does, isn't he? But yeah, so that's absolutely fascinating. I found that as very often is the case with a lot of your books, there are so many aspects to this book. This isn't just a one idea book. This is a multitude of ideas that are coming together towards a common goal, for sure. Just looking at the table of contents over here, we can see some of the sections that you've brought together here, and I have to admit, I was fascinated by this first section, and I think that many of our viewers here are going to be very interested in this as well. The idea of the four demon kings and their really interesting background, that the way we tend to think about the four demon kings in traditional Solomonic magic today versus what their likely origins could be. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I'm using them here as an example, and I actually stumbled across that example because at the time when I was writing this chapter, I was actually working with the wind, and I was working practically with the wind in the location that I live in, and I had a statue of a wind deity in my house, and it just taught me so much over the course of just a couple of weeks, and I had very quickly a huge amount of respect for this thing. the statue, of course, didn't matter that much. The statue was just an interface to connect into the wind as such. The wind is out there in nature, right? The wind is wherever it roams. So I was writing this, and as I was writing it, the actual first part, the way of the adept, the uprooted tradition, I came across and said, oh man, you should use exactly what you're working with right now to make this point and make this example. And what I'm trying to explain in this chapter is that when I start from my own practice, I often find myself in between two camps. I find myself in between the camp of the grimoire purist, who often take a stance of radical antiquity, like go radically back to what the text really said, and then just, really enslave yourself to the text and just do what the text says. So that's one end of the extreme. And the other end is probably modern chaos magicians, who completely liberate themselves from this and work with a radical approach towards modernity and say, whatever the text said, whatever works is well, and that's the only North Star of our work. And I think I don't really identify with either of them, and I love aspects of both ways of this working, but I would place my own work very firmly in the middle. I find myself very inspired by historic texts. I've taken a lot of important leads from historic texts, but I've never followed the ritual outline that I found in historic texts word for word. In fact, when, many years ago, when I started my work with the Arbatel, it was very clear that the outline of the rituals as given in the text is actually a trap. It's actually not meant to work that way. It's just for the people who kind of enslave themselves to the text, they would fall into that trap. So I absolutely have a love for grimoires and old magical texts, and they've been a huge source of inspiration. But when I go out and I work with the spirits, I only take them as inspiration. I take them as what ancestors of mine have learned before me. When I go out, what really matters is my own relationship with the spirits. And in that sense, I practice exactly the way that the Arbatels and many other grimoires would introduce it, to say, when you work with the spirit initially doesn't have a name. You need to work hard to understand the office of that spirit, the function of that spirit in the ecosystem that you're a part of. It's like, don't worry how your liver is called. Try to understand what the liver does in the body, and that will create your relationship. Not a secret name, but a secret understanding of how the liver functions in your body. So that's what many of the grimoires call out. You need to, and that's what they mean with, you need to be born as a magician. That means you need to have a baseline level of skills so that you can form an understanding from first-hand practice of what this spirit really does. And then you can really work with it. You can delve in. And then after that, it's really helpful to go back to the literature and say, what have other people made of this spirit, and how does that compare? So as a reference point later on, the grimoires and other sources are awesome, but they should not confine your own lived experience in engaging with these spirits. And that's where, someone like Stephen Skinner or I take radically different approaches to grimoire magic. You could not practice magic or goetic magic in the way that I really think it's meant to work, and in the way that, Skinner lays it out. We're radically opposed in how we approach this material.
Yes, yeah. To be honest with you, Frater Acher, this is one of the reasons why I appreciate your book so much, is because you are very clear about the fact that you are working with the reality that is there, rather than with the idea of the reality that is there, or with what has been said about the reality that is there. And that is so fundamentally important, and is missed by some people, for sure.
Well, it's an approach where first the topography, then the map.
Yes.
First the office of the spirit, then the name of the spirit that will be your name, the name that the spirit gives you, and then you can compare, how does that compare to the stream of tradition that you work with. So it's not about radical antiquity, it's not about radical modernity, it's about radical authenticity in your relationship to the spirits that form a part of you.
Yes, yes, fantastic. Just moving along a little bit through these. I mean, every chapter has got gems, but This one particularly intrigued me, the Book of M and the Ens Astral. Is that something that you could talk a little bit more about, like give us a little bit of an idea of what this is in general?
Yeah. So I need to expand on that a little bit and maybe touch on the prior chapter, Paracelsian magic.
Of course.
So the word ingenium as such is really important to understand from a magical point of view. And it is actually in one of the Rosicrucian manifestos that it is mentioned. And I explain that in the book and give all the references and help people understand, what these texts in its original German connotation really meant. So you got to go back to these sources to understand what ingenium really means. And in short, ingenium is an organ that you carry within yourself that defines the interface between your mind and the spirits. So imagine there was an organ like your liver or your eyes, but one that you haven't yet grasped, one that you don't have conscious control over. And it's that organ that decides what kind of spirit interference or spirit contact you will actually have. So by getting hold of your ingenium and understanding how it is present, how it is, numbed or polished or awakened, and how you can work with it, you really define your capability of encountering and working with spirits. And all of that really comes from Paracelsian magic, and I go through the detail there and lots of quotes and references on that. So then, to your question, the Book of M, which is the book of mystery, probably. He doesn't explain, Paracelsus doesn't explain what this M really stands for. And the Ens Astrale, that is where he describes how the ingenium actually works in practice. That is where he goes into detail in how do you really read the book of nature? How do you read in the light of nature? And how is there actually no differentiation is the wrong word. How is there no opposition between the celestial and the chthonic? They're both woven into each other. To make this short, when you want to work with spirits as a human being, you need to make the spirits flesh in some sort of way. You need to make them in a form materialized that you can connect with them through your senses. Taste them, hear them, think them, whatever it might be, but they have to be drawn into a certain state of matter, not to visibly appear to you, but just so that you can interact with them. And that means our magic is always chthonic. It is always materialistic. It is always bound into an erotic realm that you explore through your senses. And in that kind of working, it is the chthonic underworld that provides a lot of substance, matter, raw power, and it's the celestial seed that brings a lot of intelligence, refinement, knowledge, etc. But these two need to come together like the seed in the womb to create something. And that is what the Book of M and the Ens Astrale really, what Paracelsus is hinting at. And I'm trying to give a lot of personal experiences here. I'm referencing actually, or I'm printing some of my magical diary entries from the time after I had made contact to my holy diamond, where I really began to learn a lot about this way of working with spirits in this last chapter about becoming ingenium.
Right. What a beautiful point to make, right? A very holistic approach to working with spirits. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for explaining that. That's really, really nice.
Yeah, I think, let me stress that this is really important, I think, to point out. When I use the term erotic, I don't mean sexual.
Of course.
I mean erotic when you sit in front of a great dinner and your heart is at delight about what you see, what you sense, what you smell, maybe the people around you. That is an erotic experience.
Yes.
And it's an intimate experience. Or when you're walking through sunshine after days of rain and everything is fresh and you smell it, that's an erotic experience. Yes. And in that sense, I encourage us to liberate the term erotic from the confines of sexuality and also to liberate our magic from the idea of it needs to be technical, happen in a circle, and it needs to follow a script. Eroticism doesn't follow a damn script. Like a kiss is a kiss is a kiss, right? Like
Yes.
you got to liberate yourself back into your senses to liberate that kind of magic.
Yes, yes, using the senses as a positive interface for spirituality.
Your tools, your
Yes, yes,
tools,
yes,
that's your
yes.
core tools. You can enhance some of these tools or extend them through swords and chalices and whatever else you might have. But these would be feeble tools if your senses aren't switched on.
Yeah, yes, I like that a lot. All right. Um, well, talking about eroticism in this very very nice sense, let's talk about the design of the book itself. I mean, I've been flicking through a few of those images that you shared with us, and this book is a delight not only on the inside, but this deluxe edition is it's just gorgeous. I wonder if you could share maybe a little bit with us some of your thoughts
Yeah.
on that design process. This symbol right here, this design with
Yeah.
this curved, very very long tail. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd offer this up to people's own meditations once they've read the book to wonder, what could this mean to me? But I'll give you my two anchor points maybe. I see this as a cross, first of all. So it's the cross of the world, it's the cross of the elements. But then the base is elongated into the underworld, into the chthonic sphere. And what is hanging to the left and to the right is fruits to me. So it's a cross that is bearing fruits because it's so well rooted. And that is exactly what I hope we can achieve through this work. Bring our magic back into the flesh, into the present moment, right now. You know, practice magic without wearing a robe or, whatever else you want to wear. I don't care. So that is a wonderful symbol of that. And if you flip back to one of the others that shows the back and the front as well,
Yes, yes, yes.
um, so this is a seal that people might have seen elsewhere. I used that on the
Yes.
holydiamond.com page, actually. This was a seal that I was given many years ago when I started work with my Holy Diamond. Actually, that was during the preparatory rites, the Saturn rites that I did as part of the Ritus Thanatos. This seal came up and it looked a little different, but very similar. And so, probably 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I had a stamp made, a book stamp that you now see here. And I had this in the back pocket or in my library, knowing, man, this needs to kind of hit the right book cover. This needs to be ready to hit the right book cover. And to me, it puts this book into a back and front end that directly comes from my temple. And this was the perfect moment to do that. In fact, the books are now here. I'm going to sign them on Saturday, tomorrow, and then I'm going to go into my temple for about a week. I actually also, just because I wanted to emphasize this sensual aspect, I bought one of my favorite, unfortunately quite expensive perfumes, and I'm going to perfumate some of, or the books. We'll see for how long it holds, how many books will get the privilege of tasting some of that perfume. So hopefully when you open it, you get a really erotic experience. That will be the ideal of opening the book. I have to say, we can't share images here of the normal standard hardcover version because it isn't yet out. Joseph Uccello has designed it back to back, outside, inside, all aspects of it. It is breathtaking, absolutely beautiful, full of his art. So I'm very excited to actually hold the standard hardcover and softcover edition in my hand as well.
You wrote a beautiful essay some time ago. I think it was just before you released Goetic Common Sense about the importance of a book, it giving embodying the spirit of the word that is contained within it, and oh my goodness, that resonated so deeply with me, and I know with many people out there. That's definitely what you have done here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Once
yeah. Well,
again.
let's see. I think the spirit of the book is pretty unruly in punk rock. The outset of the deluxe edition, at least, is still pretty polished. But I love the simplicity and the rawness of the book. There's no fussing around. It's leather bound front to end. It has really beautiful marbled end papers that we found, and we're able to get enough stock off to put them into the book. So it turned out really well.
Great, great, great. There was another question that I wanted to ask you about, where this book fits in terms of your body of work, because the Holy Daemon trilogy was intended as a trilogy, and yet this is somehow attached to Holy Heretics, isn't it?
Well, you're right. The trilogy that I did with Scarlet Imprint is a trilogy, and I'm super happy, of course, with their work, but also how this body of work turned out. Ingenium is a new cycle. Ingenium is a new outlook, and it is actually way more personal. As I said, it's also, I think, more radical. It's probably also me as an author having found my own voice even more, maybe more confidence to be a bit more radical in the way I express myself, share my own way of working. I actually this week began work on the follow-up volume to Ingenium, and I can now understand how this would probably 2 or 3 books as well. So I'm
So we can
myself
expect
only
more.
beginning. You definitely can expect more. We have Ingenium, then there are 2 more books that will come out that I've already written. So now I'm writing on the follow-up to Ingenium. That will take me some time. I can see the content shape up now. It will be very, very complex. So that will take a little bit of time to get that right. But Ingenium really opens a new vista, and it opens definitely a new cycle of work for me that I haven't finished yet.
Okay, okay, fantastic. Of course, books do not get made in a vacuum, and I know at the beginning of our conversation you said that there were some people that you'd love to thank. So now's
Yeah,
definitely the
yeah,
right
yeah.
time.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, yeah. When I publish my book, I always think, man, I should put in a page at the beginning where I do acknowledgments and maybe dedicate it to more people. And then I love the purity of not doing this and just kind of allow people to drop right into the actual content. So this is a great opportunity to do it. Yeah, I definitely want to call out Josephine McCarthy, who is really running Tadehent and Korea Publishing. She's been such an important influence on my work. I really trust her judgment when I write chapters where I'm not quite sure whether I'm addressing it from the right angle. She's the first person that I go to and ask for her opinion, and no doubt she will give me her opinion. So there are quite a few chapters that need to be trashed, not only from this work, but also from others. I also want to thank Frater Acher, Ralph Techmeyer. Since we started our collaboration with Paralibrum, we've really been in regular exchange, and he's the most well-studied, erudite person that I probably know in the magical sphere. It's just absolutely humbling. And yet, he's so good in taking all this knowledge that he's soaked up from literary and books and make it flesh in his own mind and in his own work. Like everything you'll hear from him is practical. So huge influence. And I, couldn't be more happy with his work on the copy editing. It's such a difficult job to do well, and he's done it fantastic. Obviously, I want to thank Joseph Uccello. This was our opportunity to get to know each other a little better, and we definitely have a shared passion, if not obsession, with Paracelsus and that work. I truly admire Joseph's work on multiple levels. I recall we had a conversation where I think for 30 minutes he explained to me why this font for the body was the absolute right font because it had no straight lines. And man, I just love nerding out over this stuff. So he's awesome. I also want to call out Marcus McCoy from Troll Cunning Forge. He and I really started exchanging after I had written Ingenium. But I discovered through that exchange that we're really down similar lanes of magic, even though we come from very different angles. So we're currently exploring, could we do a magical object in the spirit of Ingenium? What would that be, and how would it manifest? And he's by far way more experienced than I am, obviously in, alchemical processes and the actual forge and all of that. So that already is shaping up as a huge influence. In fact, he did a ritual dagger for me the other day, and as he was doing the dagger began talking to me, even though we're thousands of miles apart. And that dagger actually told me where to go and look for content for the follow-up volume of Ingenium.
Wow.
So that guy is just an epiphany of magical work. I'm super impressed. And then, of course, I want to thank Paracelsus. You'll find a section in this book where I'm speaking to Paracelsus in the you form, as if he was in the room with us, and I'm trying to really depict a lively image of who that person might have been and how he might have been perceived by people around him. So I think, I'm not big into veneration of ancestors, but if I venerated anybody, it would probably be him. And
Yes.
wanted to go on a spirit ride with him. And then lastly, I want to thank all the spirits that helped me write this book. I think in particular it would be the four winds. I wouldn't call them the four demon kings, because that's just a grimoire expression,
right.
but it would be the power behind the four winds. They were very, very present in writing this book. I want to say one last word, Dennis. I've been writing quite a bit over the last 3 years because effectively I had a pandemic to write through, and I think I'm rather disciplined in how I lead my life. I don't want to leave a doubt that I'd be just pumping out a lot of books without the proper care.
Of course.
This book has gone through a lot of revisions. I've shared it with people that I truly trust and always invited them to tell me, look, if this is trash, tell me it's trash. And then, it's good and we just move on. Yet the feedback I received on the book echoed my own thought that this is actually, it's really good. It's worthwhile to be in people's hands.
Certainly, I agree with that statement.
Yes. And I do, when I write, I probably write 5 to 10 to 15 pages at a stretch without actually thinking much. The only break that I take is looking up references, because I work with the spirits. Then I go back to these 15 pages a day or two later. And sometimes I trash all of it and say, yeah, I know what you wanted to say, but it doesn't need to be said this way. And sometimes it's good and I move on. Rarely do I fiddle with it. Rarely is it like, oh, this word isn't right. That, like, either I hit the nail or I didn't hit it and then it's trashed. So, I think I've learned that you can write a full book in 6 to 8 months if you're absolutely clear on what you're intending to say.
Yes.
If you work with the right spirits, and if you have the right library around you. That's a really important point. Like, you need to have the references at your fingertips so that you can, work with 10 books at a time to cross-reference.
Yes, having the right references certainly makes a huge difference. And as you say, this book is coming very hot on the heels of Holy Heretics. But of course, the process of creating the books doesn't necessarily have any kind of reflection in the release scheduling. Of course, right?
No,
I know Holy Heretics has
exactly.
been ready for a long time.
It's been in the pipeline, waiting for this moment. And I actually think if the two books could talk, Holy Heretics and Ingenium, one of them is bound in this beautiful gold linen from Holy Heretics, from Scarlet Imprint.
There we go. It's right here.
Exactly. Beautiful. And this one will be black and red in the hardcover edition. So they stand side by side quite nicely. I think they would love kind of being embodied so side by side, like a little bit like twins.
Yes.
Coming out together, but very different in character.
Very, very different indeed. Frater Acher, I actually had one question from a Foolish Fish member who asked this question on the Foolish Fish Discord, which is open to anyone who's a member through YouTube and through Patreon. And this is how it goes. So it's Tego7 from the Discord, and he asks, along the lines of connecting with spirits in your goetic material, what is your impression of the impact on the practitioner choosing to work with angels, more specifically the Enochian angels of John Dee's work? Do you feel there is a mutually beneficial relationship that comes out of closely working with the Enochian angels, or does it seem more give than take in the end, the practitioner potentially losing themselves in the will of the Enochian angels as opposed to their own holy daemon?
Yeah, great question. I think a really important question. I can only give an answer to one half of that question or that coin. I started reading about John Dee, Edward Kelly, the Enochian angels when I was probably 13, 14. So more than 30 years ago. And I've gone really deep, I think, on John Dee's biography, what these angelic contacts did to his life. I haven't conjured them myself and I haven't worked with them. So what I can't speak to, and that's always important to me, I can't give you any firsthand reality of working with these spirits, through my own experience. So I'll give a biographical answer. And I think my personal viewpoint is we have no greater responsibility in this life than to be happy. And I don't mean this to be happy at all cost, exploiting others or the world around you, but being happy and becoming happy in a quite humble way, actually without much. Now, was John Dee a happy person? That's very hard to answer. I think when you look at the facts of his life, there are a lot of peaks and there are a lot of troughs, and maybe that's exactly what he wanted. Maybe he was like an adrenaline junkie and said, I have to live a fast-paced, high-risk life. And then we need to imagine John Dee as a very happy person. We can also imagine John Dee as a very sad person who was actually looking for a stable place, for safety, for a point of truth and reference that he actually never, ever achieved, possibly a person that was not only exploited by the Enochian spirits or angels, but also by Edward Kelly and many other people, physical people around him. So that's what I would invite anybody to do before they start out practicing Enochian magic is do your research on the historic material through a biographical lens. And if you then decide to pick up this practice, are you prepared to turn your life into a mirror image of the life of John Dee or Edward Kelly? Because if you work with the same spirits, it's likely that there will be echo of the impact in your own life. So it's not about good or bad. It's about what are you here for? What will make you happy? Make your wise choices.
Desired outcome, yes. That's a very, very beautiful take on that, Frater Acher. Thank you. It's going to be useful to anyone who will have heard that. Thank you. Frater Acher, what an absolute pleasure it's been chatting with you today. I can't recommend this book enough. It's been an absolute pleasure reading it, and I'm really looking forward to receiving my own hard copy, which I understand is going to happen soon. And of course, I'll be sharing it with everyone watching as soon as I receive it, naturally. And I'll be doing a review of Holy Heretics, no doubt within the coming few weeks. I need to really dig into that one as well. So that's really wonderful. Is there anything further you'd like to share with us? Anything you're currently working on? Anywhere that viewers can see what you're doing, stay updated, and so on?
Well, I'm spending some time right now just to update my main homepage, theomagica.com. So people who frequent that will see that some of the pages are polished, cleaner, some of the graphics are cleaner. So I don't want this to become outdated. I think I have a couple of shorter essays that will flow into the second part of Ingenium that I might publish on my blog first, and then weave it into the book later on. So I always love to work out loud, and hear what people think and say about things, but also not necessarily hold up for another 2 or 3 years until the book is ready, but make it a bit more playful. So definitely I'll be using my blog to stay in touch, like I do. But I think right now I'm going into another period of research for the next couple of months. Winter always is great for research. I need to read up, do some practices related to what I need to read up, and then I think by early spring I'll dig in and begin writing that book. We're working on the Olympic Spirits book. That is turning out to be probably my largest book to date yet. Will be around 400 pages, and has a very intense section on the Olympic Spirits history, and then an equally intense section on the Olympic Spirits practice. In that practical section, I'm offering my own take on the Arbatel, and I'm trying to restore that practice so that people don't fall into that trap. In particular, we will be working with the Seal of Secrets that's in the Arbatel, that I think has been restored in a slightly wrong way, and I'm trying to correct that in the book. So that is to launch at some point in spring next year. And then there's a secret Goetic project that I'm working on with no other than the wonderful Craig Slee. Check out Craig Slee on Facebook. He's written some beautiful, really powerful Paralibrum book reviews. He has one of the minds that I admire most and feel deeply inspired by. So he and I have been out in some trouble, getting our hands dirty, and we'll be sharing more about this in December.
I'm a fan of Craig Slee's work as well, and I'm really quite humbled to see that he just joined on the Foolish Fish Discord. So yeah, looking forward to some really nice chats with Craig over there. So that's fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much, Frater Acher. It's been a delight having you on. Such an honor that you would choose the Foolish Fish channel to launch your book like this. Of course, links to everything we've been talking about today down in the description. Check out the comments also. Frater Acher is going to be answering your questions in the comments when this launches live, and I'll try my best to find a way to immortalize those questions and answers. So yeah, just check that out down in the comments, or turn on the automatic scrolling comments on the side. You know how it works. Thank you everyone who's joined us for this chat, for watching today, and yeah, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't done so already, and we'll see you very soon with another video. Thank you so much, Frater Acher, once again. Take care.
Thank you, Dennis. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.